It's time to talk Gonzaga basketball.
Get ready.
It's the Spokesman-Review Zag's Insiders Podcast.
Here we go.
Here's Jim, Meehan, and Richard.
Welcome back,
Huff.
everybody. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining us on the Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. Jim Meehan, Richard Fox, with you for about 40 minutes or so. Kind of recap last week, all the events of the week, and what's coming up, a big one this week with Oregon State and St. Mary's. Our weekly check of the rankings. Haven't seen the poll yet today. Zags dropped out a week ago. Doubt they'll move back in, although everybody is getting beat in league play, so it's possible. In the net, the Zags are number 16. That was 19 a week ago. They beat Portland, who was 322 in the net. They beat them by 43 on the road. And some of the Zag opponents, you kind of start rooting for Zag opponents if you're Gonzaga to keep winning because it helps you in the net rankings. Wasn't a great week there. West Virginia, Arizona State, UConn, Kentucky all lost. And Gonzaga's only game was against a team that's quad 4. I think is the lowest in the WCC at 322. Foxy, it's beyond my ability to explain the net and why that happened. You want to you're a smart guy. You want to give it a run?
No, I don't. I think,
Okay.
it's not worth trying to,
Yeah.
at least I don't think it's worth being a subject matter expert on the net. I'm sure there are people out there that are making a living doing that.
It's impossible for one. So let's move on. I looked at some brackets this morning. The Zags were as high as 6 in one, low as 9. Jerry Palm has them a 9 playing Texas Tech in Lexington. And the winner would probably get Auburn, the top overall seed at this point. TeamRankings.com has the Zags as a 9 seed. Interestingly, just in front of them, ahead of them, UCLA, UConn, and Baylor, who they all played. Bracket matrix. It's a conglomeration of about every bracket out there. And it has them as a 8 seed as well. So, as we mentioned, number 54 in the net, Oregon State coming to the Kennel Tuesday game, rare for conference. And that's quad 2. St. Mary's, number 23 in the net and rising. Obviously a quad 1. So we'll see if the Zags can pull off a road win in Moraga. See if they can make it a race in the WCC. There's a 2-game gap right now. But first, the week that was, 1 game. That's all there was. But there was a lot of angst out in Gonzagaville that after losing 2 straight in conference the week before. The week leading up to the Portland game on Saturday was pretty interesting. Talking to the players, talking to Mark Few, and people with the program. There was some tough practices, physical practices. Defensive-minded drills, obviously, were the kind of the order of the day because they gave up 200 points in those 2 losses last week. And player meetings, I think they all kind of had their opportunity to say what was on their mind. To cut to the chase, Ryan Nemhard kind of heard all that, and I still remember Marshawn Lynch, I think, saying it at the Super Bowl. It's about the action, boss. That's what he said, and kind of what Ryan said. No more talking. Let's put it out on the court and show it. And that's kind of what they did on Saturday. The lead up, the discussions. I think they do Personal Growth Monday. I think that's what it's called, with Travis Knight every Monday. Some of that was involved too with the players talking. Is it sort of what you expected? Kind of a long, tough, reflective, honest conversation week to try to get the ship righted?
Well, I mean, yes, and I think that's, they needed something to that effect. I don't think there's not a group that I watch play anyway, and we've talked about this, Jim, that I think, man, they just don't play hard. I don't think there's an effort problem. I don't think there's a bad apple problem. That's another way of saying I don't think there's like a chemistry issue.
Yeah.
But certainly they've not been playing well. Even certainly the schedule, much like St. Mary's, quite frankly, although St. Mary's is probably a little bit more generous from the league, really soft on the front end. So when you're playing, these quad four teams in the bottom half of this conference, it's pretty forgiving.
Yeah.
And I think at times, you can see the mistakes, you can see, the areas that need to be improved, but when you're still beating teams fairly handily, it's not quite as urgent. I mean, that's human nature, and I think
Yeah.
that's from the staff all the way down. I mean, you may be talking about the same issues that came up a week or so ago, or a couple weeks ago, but they're just not as urgent until you kind of get smacked in the face and you realize all the stuff we've been talking about and trying to kind of talk through really bit us. We've got to buckle down and deal with it. So, we'll talk about the game here momentarily. It certainly felt like there was more intention and more urgency, and just more enthusiasm on the defensive end for sure.
And energy, something you've been, the joy. There seemed to be some joy out there that you've kind of discussed in past weeks as well. And I think that was obvious too. I see the AP poll. Zags I think they had 34 points in the voting last week. They're about 4 or 5 out of the top 25. St. Mary's moved past them, 45 votes. Arizona is at 47. So all the Gonzaga connections are right there. Baylor had 8 points in the latest. West Virginia is receiving votes as well. So that's kind of where they stand there. The WCC released Players of the Week, and it was a Portland sweep. Gotta believe that's the first time in history a team has lost by 43 on their home floor and won both the Player of the Week, Max McKinnon, 43 points against San Diego, and I think 18 versus the Zags, and then Austin Rapp, the freshman, was freshman of the week.
Do you know who votes this?
I assume it's the conference office with the school submitting a player to consider for each award. I believe that's how that goes down. So Zags still over on the season there. We'll see.
I told you. I think that's how it's going to go. I mean, someone's got to go for 40.
Yeah, you might be right. Foxy, the big deal on Saturday night, and we kicked it around last week. What would the changes be, whether starting lineup or rotation wise? I was more inclined to think maybe one in the starting lineup, but more in the rotation minutes. I was wrong, per usual. They went with 2.
Once a season, buddy. That's all. Everyone, you get one a season. You're fine.
Well, they went with 2 new guys in the starting 5. Emmanuel Innocenti, the sophomore, and Braden Huff started for Graham Ike. Battle went to the bench as well. And then post-game, Mark kind of explained his reasoning, and it made a lot of sense. It was Ike, the flagrant foul, technical foul, that 3-4 minute mark last week against Santa Clara. Immediately took him out after the second infraction there and put him on the bench. And that's when the Zags got the comeback going with Benny Gregg at the 5 and Michael Ajayi at the 4. Smaller, quicker lineup. He just said that's just something we had to address. And he was very pleased with how Graham responded, apologetic, didn't mope, all those things. And he brought him in at the first media timeout. As far as Emmanuel, it was very clear. I think his words were, we had a bad, horrible defensive game. And very true. They gave up 59, I want to say, in the second half to Santa Clara. Emmanuel is, and we've talked about this, kind of their defensive ace, their best guy in terms of on-ball physicality, can deal with the bigger wings. So he got the start, played pretty good, hit a couple of shots. I think all the Zags had trouble defending Max McKinnon early, but they kind of got him under wraps after a pretty good start. And so both those changes look like they worked. Now, to be honest, it was Portland. It was a team they'd beaten by 31 the time before and was 2-6 in league. We talked about their net. If you were going to experiment, that's probably the one you would, say let's give it a go here, see. But I also think there was a lot of thinking in that. Mark doesn't do things, willy nilly. He's calculated. Maybe there were messages sent. Well, we can talk about that. But when you saw that starting five walk out there, what went through your head?
I think I was in the same place you were, that I expected something to happen. I've been an advocate for Emmanuel and just seeing what he can provide them. Certainly you look at his numbers last year, and he played a ton. I think 31 games, but didn't shoot it very well. And I think maybe the perception was offensively he was a bit raw. And obviously, to start the year, you had your top eight and all proven guys on the perimeter, and it felt like, at least I presume, there's not a spot to put him in right now. Let's develop him, and I just think he's clearly shown them enough defensively where they really value that part of his skill set. And when I watch him with the ball, he's comfortable. He had 5 assists in the game.
Yeah.
Doesn't turn it over at a high clip. Doesn't appear to he's not playing hot potato with it. I mean, he'll put it on the ground and try to get in position to make a play. And his 3-point shot looks good. I mean, he went 2 of 4. I mean, I'm not sure anyone's after that game going to want him to get 5, 6, 7 up a game. But I'm not sure he's a guy you can leave just naked on the 3-point line defensively and think he's going to shoot Gonzaga out of a game. I think he's going to be able to knock those down. And he played 23 minutes. I'm not sure that this is going to be the new norm for Emmanuel, but can they carve out 10 to 12, 14 minutes? I think they should. And the reality is, as much as much of a fan as I am of all the other guys in the perimeter, Battle and Stromer in particular, who kind of play his spot, neither one of them is shot the ball at a super high level. I mean, I look at what Battle's done last 2 games. I mean, the game against Portland was strange.
Yeah.
16 minutes. I don't think he looked at the basket.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't know if that's a player who the message was you've got to do something other than just look to score. I'm simplifying what that conversation probably sounded and looked like. Or if that's a player who's frustrated and saying, all right, if I'm not starting, the most famous version of that was Kobe Bryant, however many years ago, right? Where
I remember.
Just refused to shoot the ball. And it was, and I'm not comparing the two, but it was just very, I mean, he never
It was noticeable. It was noticeable.
There you go. That's the way to say it, right?
Yeah.
And then I look at, Dusty, who I'm a huge fan of, finally saw the ball go in, 8 points, made a couple threes, but the previous 5 games he was shooting, he's 4 of 18 from 3, 32% from the field. And the defense, it wasn't as if while he's on the floor, the defensive end of the game was, an A+. It just screams to me, play Emmanuel. He's the drop off, if there is one, is not 3 or 4 levels. So I was happy to see that, and I hope that it's not a one-off, that they have faith in him and they see the value he brings, and having another guy come in that can really guard and is committed to that, but can make an open shot. I think it's worth a look personally.
Well,
and I thought he did well.
You brought it up a week ago. And I think we both agreed that this is a possibility, especially in the areas they're struggling, guarding Adama Ball and guarding Tyree Bryan and all these wings that have had big days. You're playing Max McKinnon. He's a good wing. And so I think the timing was right. What I liked is he looked comfortable. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look, I shouldn't be out here. Braden Huff, same way. I mean, he's played a ton of games already, but he didn't look any different than how Braden always looks. He was very efficient, active in the post. And Emmanuel did, I think you said it right away. He wasn't, catch and get rid of it. I'm not supposed to have the ball.
Mhm.
And when he got the ball open, in rhythm, stuck it. I think he took 4 threes maybe.
He did. Yep, 2 or 4.
But his shot looks decent. It's looked decent all year. He hit the 3 at the craziness scrimmage, craziness in the kennel right out of the gate to win the scrimmage. So I know that's a different level of pressure.
You're right.
It's a good sign to me.
Yeah,
And he just looked comfortable to me, both of them.
Well, it's going to be interesting though here, Jim. You know, they all of the things that they want to do, all of whatever their internal goals are, they cannot do it without Battle. They have to get him back. And I'm not saying they've lost him, where he's out in the wilderness. This is obviously a very, very good program. They know what they're doing, but that performance was strange. And wherever he's at with his head and his feel for his where he fits, that to me, and they don't have a long time here. They played Saturday. Oregon State's coming to the kennel, and we'll talk about that. But that's a very good team. Obviously, you've got a lot of respect for that for them. They need scoring from that spot, and so I'll be very, very interested to see, do they stay with Emmanuel in the starting lineup, or have they just unlocked something and bring him off the bench? Or Battle's come off the bench. I believe last year, the bulk of the year, he came off the bench for that Arkansas team. But there's a difference between starting and coming off the bench, sure, but what is that doing to a player's mindset and psyche? So I'm very interested we don't have to belabor that point, but I'm very interested to see Caleb's body language, his aggressiveness on Tuesday night in a pretty short turnaround. They can't do a whole lot. They can't reach the lofty levels of their goals if that's the Caleb Battle they're going to have.
Yeah, he raises the ceiling.
There you go. That's the way. That's the way to describe
it. He does, yeah. And I think what makes Emmanuel unique is he raises it in a different way. The issues they've had, he can help out. But my guess, I would guess, EK goes back into the starting lineup.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Although they've basically split time, I think they're 2 or 3 minutes apart anyway throughout the year. They did exactly what they do most games. I think they got 26 or 7 points combined. Ike had a tough start. He kind of missed a couple of close shots. And then he took a 3 that maybe wasn't the right time, right place either. And then he settled in and did his thing. I think he had 14 points in 16 minutes. Battle's stat line, I think, was 17 minutes, no shots, no points. That's the second straight game. 3 fouls, 2 turnovers, 1 assist, 1 rebound. I think Emmanuel finished with 8 points and 5 boards. Braden had 12 points. And that kind of, again, we're trying not to make these sweeping judgments. It was one game. They were favored by 25, so you got to be careful not to, overreact to what you saw. But if I had to guess, EK is going back in the starting lineup. And,
I would agree.
And I'm guessing, I don't know, that especially with the way the Kings kid played against the Zags, it just torched him the first half. And then the point guard torched him in the second half, Minor. I would say there is a chance Emmanuel starts if Mark weighs that they need him defensively, and the other 4 around him are all capable scorers. It's not like you would probably struggle to score at that point. We'll see. That's going to be the interesting question. But I do believe message was sent to Graham Ike. I think the message was sent to Caleb Battle. How they respond is interesting going forward. But I think you saw the way Ike played and the way he sounded, according to Mark, was a pretty good sign. He'd started 95 games in a row. It was like February of his freshman year at Wyoming. Battle had started all 20. and 9, his last 9 at Arkansas. But he was in and out of the lineup at Arkansas. If you look, started, played 35 minutes, came off the bench, played 9 minutes. All this up and down. So we'll see what happens. That's my guess, that Ike stays in the starting lineup. I don't think it's out of the possibility Dusty could start there at the wing too. But if I had to guess, I'm thinking Emmanuel comes off the bench, but maybe he's the first guy on the media timeout, especially if defensively they're not getting it done. What's your best guess on how that looks going forward here?
I'd go back to both of them. Obviously we're not, as quote unquote dialed in as we might be. We're not there every day. We're not in the room.
Yeah.
So we're presuming a lot at times, but I think battle's that important, and unless nothing about Saturday night indicated to me he was he was super enthusiastic about coming off the bench.
Yeah.
And you have to do what's right for your ball club, for sure, and that may be starting Emmanuel or Dusty. But I want to keep Caliph tethered to what we're doing here.
Oh yeah.
And whatever that looks like, we'll find out. I really don't. Not concerned that they're not going to be able to do that, and this is going to become some sort of issue. I just have a lot of faith in Mark and that staff and what kind of the infrastructure within that basketball program. But my instinct, again, not being in the room, would be certainly Graham's going to start. I think that was. I mean, I would imagine Graham had a real long week, but he's just, quite frankly, he's a very impressive guy.
He is
very mature, thoughtful. Off the floor, just very intelligent, and on the floor, that competitiveness, you don't really see it off the floor. But I think sometimes it gets away from him. There's maybe conflating or confusing, chirping at officials and players and throwing an elbow as toughness, and it's not. It's distracting. Focus on what you're doing, and when he does that, he's as good as anybody in the country at that center position. And so I look at this last week for him and coming off the bench, I fully expect Graham to just go on a tear here through the end of the year. I just think he's the kind of guy who's going to respond really well to that. And so I'm with you on that. I just don't have a feel for the situation with Battle, but from my chair with my feel for the game, I would say I'd really try to bring him back and see if you can re-engage him. It's just been
he's too important very interesting. Of a beast. They need him. He's too important. No, I agree with you. And the way Mark worded it with Ike was great human. Great guy, just needs to handle his emotions better on the court.
Yeah,
that hits it right on the head. One last thought on Portland. They do have some nice guys offensively with McKinnon, Rapp. Chris Austin is really coming along. He's 6'4", 205 type guy, tough guy inside. But I just trying to summarize Gonzaga defensively. I thought they were just more in tune. I thought they were more aggressive. Not that they were trapping or anything, but forced a lot of turnovers, took advantage of them. Didn't see as many assignment errors that we've been seeing. Didn't see guys wide open. Any takeaways from the defensive effort, or was it just hard to tell against Portland?
I think I'd go the other way, Jim. I watched that game twice. I'm sure you usually go back after watching it live, and I kept seeing a lot of the same mistakes. And a lot of straight line drives, even with Emmanuel on the ball. Just some confusion. Gonzaga likes to switch everything, and I think when we think about switching defensively, we primarily think about switching ball screens But they switch everything. On the other end of the floor, there's a down screen. They're trying to switch. They don't want to put themselves at a disadvantage. And when you're switching that much, communication is the most important part of that scheme. But it's also understanding what the other team's trying to do. Generally, you're not going to know every one of their plays, and being able to anticipate a little bit and know, like, okay, what, so and so or this spot goes down to this point on the floor for a down screen. We're going to generally do this action. And from where I was watching it, um, I thought the engagement was at a better level. I thought the kind of enthusiasm there, wanting to guard, was at a better level. But I still saw a lot of those breakdowns,
Okay.
and that Portland can't make you pay in the same way the top half of the league can. So my takeaway, honestly, was they certainly got things, I think, not that it was on the wrong track, but they've veered back over to the right two tracks here a little bit. I think they're in a better place on a macro basis. This week we'll find out. They're going to find out Tuesday night against an Oregon State team who, bizarrely, is one of three on the road. At home they're averaging 84, on the road they're averaging 76. But that's an Oregon State team that's got a lot of confidence. They just beat Santa Clara by 14. Granted, Santa Clara didn't have Brian, but Rataj is as good as anybody in the conference, second leading scorer in conference play. They will make those shots if you break down. And then, of course, you're going down the same area. So we'll talk about both those games, but this is the week we're going to find out.
Yeah.
Both, have they corrected whatever the deficiencies that they've identified are? Have they ramped up their focus and intensity, all of the cliches defensively that we didn't really see for probably 3 weeks, but really came to a head a week ago? We're going to find out this week, and it'll be really interesting because Oregon State's got players, and obviously St. Mary's, for some way, somehow, Bennett keeps it going, basically playing 5 guys. But so this is the week. I'm fascinated to see it, Jim. I'm optimistic, but I didn't finish watching the game against Portland thinking to myself, thinking the same way I thought earlier in the year, in particular, after some of those games where this team could be elite defensively.
Yeah.
I have not felt that way in a while, and I didn't feel nothing about Saturday night, at least from my perspective, made me feel like things were heading back to where I saw things earlier in the year. So
yeah, more proof required here.
Yeah, time will tell. Time will tell.
Quick thought on Ryan Nembhard. He said no more talking. Let's show it on the court. Then he went out and had, I think, 13 assists. Again, I think he has 13 games with double-digit assists. Just crazy. He's already at 207 on the year. His single-season record last year was 243. He might have that by, next weekend.
I know, it's crazy.
It is insane what he's doing out there. I'm getting to the question is Blake Stepp holds the record with 16. I think it's going to have to combine a few factors for Ryan. Like Portland, he got 3 fouls. He sat out quite a bit of time. I think if that game stayed reasonably close and he was on the floor for 35 minutes, I think maybe he gets it or ties it or something there. If the circumstances allow, if there's a game within 8, 10, 12 points most of the way, if he's playing 38 minutes, I got to believe that record is in jeopardy. And this kid, he had a series, I think it was right after Portland made the run, got it within 3. They scored like 8 in a row, got it within 3. I think he went assist to Greg, to maybe Benny, to Braden, 4 straight when they pulled it back away. What do you think that Jeopardy's going, that record's going down, or is it just too hard to line up all the stars to make the minutes and the game itself close to give him that chance?
Oh no, I think he'll have an opportunity. I mean, He's remarkable, Jim. We've been um, the best professional prospects this program has put out has generally been post players. Um, so when I always laugh when people say Gonzaga, GU guard you, I get a little chuckle out of that. But he is he's just so unique, and it's the classic case of when everyone's going to realize how good he was if they don't already when he's gone.
Yeah.
He just makes life so easy for everybody else, and he is the latest in a long line of very, very good college guards that have come through this program, and his brother was no different. I always had a real soft spot for Josh Perkins. I thought Josh was not nearly appreciated nearly as much as he should have been. And you go all the way back to Matt Santangelo, just they've always, generally speaking, every time Mark's put a team together, they've had a high level point guard, and Ryan's has been phenomenal. So, I expect he'll get it. I mean, he plays so much, particularly in these games that get close.
Yeah.
But what I liked was he didn't really have to score because of who Portland is. And I've never gone through the numbers, and there's probably nothing there. But it feels like when he keeps his shot attempts, and this is arbitrary, around 6. Gonzaga's playing at a super high level offensively, but when he has to start be more aggressive, looking to score himself,
Yeah.
you can look at that box score, or at least I do, and that tells me that something was going on offensively where all of a sudden you need Ryan to score, which really takes away from what he does best, which is just spread the ball around. Gonzaga never gets rushed offensively because he has the ball in his hands, and it was just another masterclass. And maybe he breaks the record and he'll be player of the week. You never know.
Come on, yeah, that's asking a lot now.
Yeah, I know.
Not the record part. Not the. Quickly, Benny Gregg had a big night in his hometown. Yeah. It's about 20-25 minutes to Clackamas, he said, but a lot of people there on hand. That 3-point percentage is creeped into the low 30s now. You saw Michael Ajayi hit a 3, scored 20 points. So good night out of the 4 position. They got 44 points and 5 threes. That would work most nights. So anyway, I thought the timing of it was pretty good. Benny's last trip through Portland probably meant a lot to him with family and friends there. I'm just still amazed how he handles any role, any minute, time limit he has on the floor, start, bench. And he's always the same player, and that can't be easy. I know, Foxy, did you come off the bench? Did you do the juggling? How tough is that to do what he's done at the level he's done it?
Oh yeah, I mean, not like Ben, but certainly I don't know. I probably started half my games in my career at Colorado and Gonzaga. Maybe a little less than 50%, but I was just for Ben. It feels like there's a comfort I think that the staff gets from him. So bringing him off the bench makes a lot of sense. He's a calming influence. He's steady. But he has been so important to them as a starter the last couple of years, and I couldn't be happier for him. It takes and this thought just came to me, so I don't necessarily have as good a way to describe it as I might otherwise, but it takes a certain type of person to push down that personal ambition, because Ben, you don't play that hard, you're not that talented, and you don't have an ego. Ben has to have an ego, and Ben says all the right things, but I'm sure it gnawed at him that to start his senior year he's not starting in these games, and Michael's coming in off the street and he's starting. That had to have bothered him, but he just appears to be the type of person who can push down that frustration or box it up, and he just has this kind of collective view as a player, where a way to say it is he's always been a team first guy, even when I think that's hurt his own individual ambition, or maybe has forced him to put some of that ambition on the back burner. And I just think that says a lot about his character. And I don't know Ben very well, other than to say hello. And I've met his parents with you and a few other times. A great family, from what I can gather. Um, but that's becoming increasingly rare to find in sports generally, but certainly college athletics in the new age of NIL. He's I, as much as Watson was a tough loss. I think they're going to really miss Ben, not just because of his production, but because of his approach. And it's hard as a guy, on the team who is maybe being forced to do that, to have an attitude about it. When I look over and I see Ben Gregg is doing it with a smile on his face, even though I'm maybe gnawing at him, it's hard for me to it should be hard for me, rather, I should say, to be difficult about it when I look over at him and I see that he's handling it just fine. I think they're gonna miss that kind of fabric that he brings. That's a conversation, obviously, towards at the end of the year and into next year. But really happy for him. Last time he gets to play in front of, I'm sure folks that don't get to come out to the kennel or travel the way his parents get to travel. It's just an amazing night. I think it was 8 of 8 in the first half. It was kind of crazy. So couldn't be happy for him.
A lot of parallels there with Anton. What he does, how he carries himself, how he the energy, the juice he brings. He's been invaluable for him. Well, let's get to the big week here. Oregon State's up first, feeling pretty good about themselves, coming off a win over Santa Clara, home win by 14. I think Michael Ratai had 30 in that game. What did they had 29 against the Zags or something?
I'll look it up. I think he had more than that, but go ahead.
He had a lot. Let's put it that way. So have been a little different. They have been a little different on the road. There should be some real atmosphere in the kennel on Tuesday, and some real attitude for the Zags. I mean, to lose that game in overtime down there, to have a late lead. I think they were up 76-71. I'm going off my poor memory, but something like that, with 5-6 minutes to go, and then end up losing that game. So I would expect them to be fully amped up for Oregon State. I think it's going to come down to the same issues that surfaced in the first game. Can you control, not shut down? These guys are not the kind of guys you hold to 2 points. Can you control Minor? Can you control Kings, Ratai? So they're not putting 55-60 on you. Can you keep them to 40? Can you keep the shooting percentage under 50, in the 40s, low 40s? That's kind of the goal. It's not to shut them out. You're not going to do that. So I think that's kind of job one. And there's got to be a lot of adjustments you make from seeing a team a couple of weeks ago to now, seeing what worked, what didn't work. I expect both teams will be tinkering with what they're doing, coverage-wise, offensively, all those things. What's the key in your mind to this, trying to reverse this outcome from a couple of weeks ago against the Beavers?
Well, last week we talked about the Portland game, and my comment was, I need to see him put a number on them, and they did. I thought it was a really good response. I remember having a couple of those types of weeks when I was a player. They are miserable. I mean, they are long, they're unpleasant. It's your coaches remarkably forget about those games coming up, and it's like you're just opening up the season all over again. It's intense. So how are they going to respond? I think, check mark. Great response. Put a number on a Portland team at their place. You handled your business. This is the stuff you're excited about if you're a competitor. You lost the game on the road. You feel like you should have won. The way you lost the game really stung. 0 of 8 in the overtime, have a lead late. You just, again, the execution down the stretch leaves a lot to be desired. And you get very little production off your bench. You didn't shoot the ball well. I mean, you can't wait for these games, but usually it feels like you got to wait a month, right? You play everybody in the first half, you got to wait, but there's not been a long runway here. So, what I hope to see is we have the students there. The kennel's going to be alive. I expect Gonzaga is going to be really motivated. I hope to see a group that it is evident how hard they're playing, and that they're itching to get a crack at the Beavers after losing a game on the road. And there's those defensive questions, Jim. Oregon State's got the players to put it to a test, and I think we're going to see. Have they been able to right some of these defensive issues that they've had, or are they going to rear? Is it going to rear its head up again, and we're going to see Oregon State make or miss, get open looks from three, get clear driving lanes to the paint. That's what I'm looking for. It's what's the level of quality that Oregon State's able to generate on their offensive end compared to what they got at home, which is awfully good. And so I'm looking to just see a really amped up Gonzaga team. Oregon State's going to come in with a lot of confidence. They haven't beat them already. And Tinkle's a good coach. He's been there for a long time. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
No, these are legit all-conference players. I mean, Ratai is going to be on the all-conference team.
Oh, 100%.
And he's a difficult guy. He's rangy. He'll bounce it a little. He can hit a three, even if he banks it like he did in overtime, that one shot. But right. He has some clean threes, too. I mean, he can shoot it, and he can get his own shot, and he can work inside. Parsifala can score inside. Minor and Kings is a very good guard combo, So these are quality players, and I'm just like you. I want to see if the Zags are kind of sound defensively. If there's a bunch of open looks, if there's a cutter wide open, if it's dumping inside, there's no help, and a guy's torching them. Those are the kind of things I want to see if they can. Ray Giacoletti used to say, just be solid. You don't have to just be solid. We'll see if they can pull that off.
There's something to be said for be solid and let your opponent make a mistake. Just don't beat yourself. Just keep a guy in front. Execute the rotations as you need to. Don't go for that steal. If you're a post player, stand your ground, brick wall these guys. If they make a shot over you, great. Just make them beat you, be solid. And the bet is that your solid is good enough anyway. But if it's, if the other team's also going to make mistakes. So yeah, I'm very, that game Tuesday is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the one Saturday is going to be absolute chaos, bonkers down in Moraga. The building, I have learned to adjust my attire. It is full to the brim. There's 6-8 deep behind me in the walkway filled to the rafters. It's about 80 plus degrees upstairs where we sit. So I have learned golf shirts.
You wearing shorts?
No shorts, but golf shirt is a must up there. Otherwise, you're going to be sweating bullets. So it's a tough place to play. Fans are right on you on the court. There is all noise all the time. And the way they're playing, I think people thought maybe, the Gales had kind of beat up on the bottom 4 or 5 teams, and they had in league to start out with, but they came back home and throttled San Francisco. That game wasn't really very close in the second half. Then they went on the road and won a tough road game against Washington State after being down 10 in the second half. I was kind of trying to keep an eye on that during the Portland game, and I looked, and it was, I think, 49-39. You're probably doing the same. You have the split going. 49-39, they were down. Next time I looked, I think they were up 59-54. I mean, that's a major turnaround in a hurry. So that's a good road win for the Gales. And now they've got 2 good wins last week, so they'll be full of confidence as well. They're big, they're physical. They've got 7-footers on the bench and 6'11" guys on the bench. They've got the player of the year last year in Augustus Marciulionis, very solid player, nothing flashy, but solid, both ends of the court. They lost Mahaney and Jefferson. I think everybody thought, well, they're going to be a nice team, but probably not, a threat to win the league. Well, that's obviously not the case. That team is playing great, getting great minutes out of Luke Barrett, who's made a real jump on the floor. They've got some. They are no fun to play with. It is a grind. They're going to beat up on you. They're physical. They get on the glass. All those things. They're going to run their offense for 25 minutes, so you better be ready to guard. They're one of the best offensive rebounding teams out there. This is going to be very interesting. The environment, the caliber of opponent, the physicality, all those things that the Zags look. If you want to win this title and make it a race, you better win Saturday. If not, you're down 3. And the games are starting to get, there's still a ton of tough games out there for both teams, but there's not as many games to work with. So what do you think's going to, how's that one play out? What do you want most interested in seeing matchup wise with the Gales?
Well, to your point, defensively, they're a good, full 5 percentage points better in conference play defensively than anybody else. LMU is second, Gonzaga right behind them, but the Gales' whole team's under 39% from 3. They're getting 15 offensive rebounds a game, to your point. Saxon somehow is averaging effectively 5.
Yeah.
And they don't turn it over. They obviously play at a much slower pace than we're used to watching Gonzaga. So as a result, the opponent's points per game is naturally lower, but they're still handling teams. Their scoring margin's right up there with the best in the league.
Yeah.
So it is a tough place to play. It's one of those things too where we just talked about not beating yourself. St. Mary's is as good as anybody I've ever seen that does that. They don't make mistakes. You have to beat them, and especially at home. And the kid out of they've got obviously Marciulionis, player of the year last year. He continues to be solid. Saxon obviously just an anchor. Literally in the middle. Can't move him. It's a great matchup with him and Graham.
Yeah.
You'd be thrilled if you could get some fouls on him, just given Weisel comes off the bench, but he's not nearly the player. He's enormous, but he's not nearly the player. But they got a kid out of Arizona, the transfer.
Really good. Yeah, really good player. Yeah.
I'm gonna try this Marascus.
Marascus, I believe. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Averaging 13 a game, shoots it okay from 3, but just good size. They basically have 5 guys that play the bulk of their minutes. They've got Mikey Lewis and Penny Hardaway's kid, I believe, Ashton Hardaway, coming off the bench. And they'll plug and play some guys, but it's going to be a physical game. They're not going to turn it over. If in a 4 or 6 point lead against St. Mary's, it's effectively 8 to 12 against anybody else, just because they shrink the game, right? They limit the number of possessions. So if you're Gonzaga, can you get to playing fast at all? Gonzaga's so good converting from the defensive end, the glass, the turnover to the offensive end. Can they do that against a St. Mary's team that rarely lets anybody do that because they send guys back? And can you make shots on the road? That Gonzaga's splits are noticeable at home versus on the road, particularly from 3. You got to make some shots from the perimeter. This is, I've been thinking about this, Jim. This is why adding St. Mary, or rather Oregon State and WSU, and we're just getting the taste, I think, of what the new Pac-12 is going to be, which is the top half of the league you can lose. In years past, when BYU was right, it felt like you had a couple games against St. Mary's, or 4 games against St. Mary's and BYU. We really didn't know. These teams were, if not quite as good as Gonzaga, had the ability to win a game. And I never really thought about San Francisco, Santa Clara. Every once in a while, they might get a game, but there was a huge gulf between Gonzaga and those teams. And I still think Gonzaga has the most talent, and I still think on the right night they're the best team in this league. But you have to go win the game,
Yeah.
and it's the days of going 2 weeks and rolling teams until you've got a team that you need to worry about are over. It feels like the rest of the year, to your point earlier, every week there's at least one game where if you don't bring it, if you can't guard, if you don't make shots, you're going to lose. These teams are good enough to beat you. So this is a great week for Gonzaga. I think we're gonna be having this conversation a week from today. I think a lot of our questions and a lot of our questions will be answered, and a lot of our perceptions will be corrected.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, it is fascinating to me in that game, as good as St. Mary's is on defense, how will the Zags score against them? How effective? And then flip it. How will the Zags guard for that first possession? And can they keep them off the glass for the putbacks, the second chances? Both ends of the floor is going to be must-see TV. That game always is. Very rarely have the Zags been able to just get out and run, play like they play, the other 80% of games they play. St. Mary's just doesn't let you do that, and it's hard to speed them up. They're not turning it over. And then how you deal with, they body you up, make you shoot over. You talk about stay in front and make you shoot over. That's what they do to a T. So the contrast always makes it an intriguing matchup, especially down there where the crowd is just in your face from start to finish. Should be fun. Should be a great week. We'll wrap it up there. We always appreciate you joining us every Monday. You can find us on all the podcast venues that you listen to your pods. I think we're on Apple. I know we're on the spokesman.com. I'll tweet that out. We're on YouTube. If you want the video version, I don't recommend that.
Yeah. Don't do that, guys.
The voice only is probably our best feature.
Yeah. We both have faces for radio, so let's keep it that way.
Yeah. Anyway,
faces for podcasts.
Foxy, always enjoy it. Christy Burns, thank you very much. Come back next Monday. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. Thanks for joining us.